have a couple of readings for you this morning. The first one is something I found in a booklet of lined legal sheets when we were cleaning up the effects of John Walter, who had been briefly editor of the Vineyard Gazette, a mentor to me and a good friend. He had, as it turns out, attended a writing workshop here on the island, a week-long writing workshop. And one of the assignments was to write down a piece of text and then go back to it on a second day and go back to it on a third day. And this is what we found in his notebook. Page 1. All of writing and editing is about what I meant to say. It's a never-ending process of putting down words, testing how they will strike a reader or listener, and refining, clarifying, changing. You can fret a written piece to death, of course. There is a time to move on, to know that nothing is perfect, to say, I've done my best. But there's nothing wrong, something healthy, with recognizing something you wrote is not precisely 100% what I meant to say. Page 2. All of speaking and conversation is about what I meant to say. It's a never-ending experiment, testing how the words strike a listener, seeing his or her reaction, clarifying, modifying, adapting. You can fret a conversation to death, of course. There's a time to move on. Know that complete understanding is impossible. But there's nothing wrong, something healthy, with recognizing that neither you nor those with whom you speak got it precisely 100%. Page 3. All of living is about what I meant to say. It's a never-ending process, adapting, modifying, growing. You can fret a life to death, of course. There's a time to move on. Know that nothing is perfect, to say, I've done my best. But there's nothing wrong, something healthy, with recognizing what you've done and will do is not precisely 100% what I meant to say. Peter Palchus and I had a conversation getting ready for this morning, and I mentioned that the poet, Rainer Maria Rilke, a German poet from the late 1800s into the early 1900s, he had written about how music and poetry reach into the silence that lies beyond words. Peter then dug in and found the Rilke poem that is one of the things I was referring to. It's entitled An die Musik, which means on music. And here's a translation of that poem by Stephen Mitchell, who's probably most famous for having translated really the greatest translation ever done of the Tao Te Ching. Music, breathing of statues, perhaps silence of paintings. You, language where all language ends. You, time, standing vertically on the motion of mortal hearts. Feelings for whom? Oh, you, the transformation of feelings into what? Into audible landscape. You, stranger music. You, heart space grown out of us. The deepest space in us, which rising above us forces its way out. Holy departure, when the innermost point in us stands outside, as the most practiced distance, as the other side of air, boundless, no longer habitable. Here are the opening lines of the Gospel according to John. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. That's some pretty powerful poetry, in the sense that Rilke, I think, was trying to get at, reaching into the silence that lies beyond words. But I believe that something important actually precedes the word that the gospel places at the beginning of our human story. Before there was the word, there was song. In the beginning was the voice, wrote Otto Jespersen, the celebrated Danish linguist, more than a century ago. In the beginning was the voice. Voice is sounding breath, the audible sign of life. It's accepted today that humans sang before we spoke. As Jespersen says, men sang out their feelings long before they were able to speak their thoughts. Human song, he says, were at first like the singing of birds, the roaring of animals, the crooning of babies. Exclamative, not communicative. The magic of singing, or part of the magic of singing, is that it connects us with something that's ancient and central to our humanity. In a recent study, Harvard University asked 750 people from around the world, from cultures all over the world, to listen to a set of short musical clips, each one less than 15 seconds long, and to identify whether a song might be a lullaby, a dancing song, or a healing song. People were able to do that regardless of where the music came from, regardless of their familiarity with the culture. That's because for all of us, the ability to understand music and song is something innate. This, I think, is what connects music so powerfully with the religious experience, because music connects us to something so much deeper than words. A hymn can move us even when a simple recitation of its text might leave us cold. Sam Keene writes about exactly this in his wonderful book, Hymns to an Unknown God. Keene has outgrown his conservative Christian upbringing, but he writes, "The hymns we sang still echo in the corridors of my mind and memory. Once upon a time, my God was a mighty fortress, a help in ages past, a hope for years to come. Even though I no longer accept the authority of Bible and church, the truths in back of the words still reverberate in the depths of my being." The truth in back of the words. Here we are again with the idea of music and poetry reaching beyond words towards something more deeply true. The theologian Marcus Borg writes about this when he tells of the Native American storyteller who always begins his tribe's creation stories by saying, "Now, I don't know if it happened this way or not, but this story is true." My father was a Lutheran theologian, and I know from our conversations that his relationship to Lutheranism and to Christianity evolved over the course of his life. In his later years, my dad would describe himself as a Lutheran agnostic, which I thought was humble in the best sense of the word. He once said to me, "When I was a young man, I started sentences with 'I believe that.' Now I start sentences with 'I believe in.'" In Des Moines, Iowa, where I grew up, my father was dean of a little seminary at Grandview College, the national center for our branch of the Danish Lutheran Church in America, which was called the LCA. The LCA followed the teachings of Nikolai Grundtvig, the Danish theologian, who declared, "We are human beings first and Christians second." I could do 20 minutes on that theme. Easy. Grundtvig argued that the purpose of education was not to impart facts, but to awaken us to life. His international stature might not match that of a Hans Christian Andersen or Søren Kierkegaard, but his influence on Danish culture and on Danish national consciousness was arguably even greater. Grundtvig was a philosopher, poet, prolific writer of hymns, more than 1,000 hymns. Many of them are in this book I brought today, A World of Song, which we've been singing from this morning. This is from an essay by Grundtvig, 1838. Gentlemen, I venture to say that Denmark would feel 10 times happier, and really be so, if all the beautiful new Danish songs which have sprung forth were not merely printed on paper, but were resounding in all our schools, and from there not only into the fields and forests, but also as far as the Danish flag is carried across the seas. So my branch of the Lutheran Church was known as the Happy Danes. Grundtvig celebrated the joys of nature and human community without the emphasis on biblical inerrancy, piety, sin, and redemption that characterized the Lutherans, who were called the Holy Danes, or even the Sad Danes. Celebration was central to my church life from the beginning. Dancing and drinking were accepted as parts of healthy celebrations, not as sinful behavior. And singing together was an important part of that experience. So Danish folk songs and hymns are central to my memories when I think back to my early church years in Des Moines, Iowa. I must have been 6 or 7 years old for a program in the church basement where I sang a slightly revised version of a song you know from the musical South Pacific. There is nothing like a Dane, nothing in the world. There is nothing you can name that is anything like a Dane. It was a big hit. So, music has been a through line in my life. I studied piano and played the clarinet. At the age of 11, was the mascot of a little jazz band in Copenhagen during our family's time there for my father's sabbatical year, studying Grundtvig. I picked up the mandolin in high school and taught myself to play it in college. I wound up playing mandolin and piano for the community contradances in New Harmony, Indiana, where I met Carolyn. We were married in 1981. Here at the Vineyard Gazette, I reviewed many early concerts of the Island Community Chorus. And in my first weeks after leaving the newspaper, I was recruited to join the choir. In my 20 years with the chorus, I have served 4 terms on its board of directors, and I'm currently in my 3rd year as its president. It can be a heavy burden, but I'm reminded at every Monday night rehearsal and at every concert how important and how nourishing the Island Community Chorus is for its singers and for its audiences. I've seen this again and again, once people connect with the joys of choral singing. Literally, they sing with us until they can't sing anymore. Philip Craig of Edgartown, the mystery novelist, collapsed on the riser behind me during a dress rehearsal at the Old Whaling Church in April 2007. The guys behind him caught him and helped him down to a pew until the EMTs could arrive. Phil passed away the next month. Ginny Poole of Chilmark sang with the altos of the chorus until a stroke left her unable to sing. Her husband, Everett, would wheel Ginny into the rehearsal room in her wheelchair, and she'd sit there with her section reading along. Gloria Wong of Oak Bluffs, who died this January, 1 month shy of her 96th birthday. She had sung with us at our Monday night rehearsal just the week before. Lee Fierro of Vineyard Haven took me aside before a rehearsal in 2017 to say that she was leaving the chorus, leaving the island, moving to an assisted living facility in Ohio. She was in tears. She wanted a chance to tell the choir during the break to say goodbye. And when the time came, she made her announcement, and then, out of the blue, she sang for us the old German canon. All things shall perish from under the sky. Music alone shall live, music alone shall live, music alone shall live, never to die. Finally, let me return to the assignment Peter gave me for this little homily, how music creates a sense of community. Choral singing is an especially powerful example of music's community building power. Every rehearsal of the Island Community Chorus begins with stretches and breathing exercises and vocalizations. It's a reminder that when we sing, we aren't just playing an instrument, we are the instrument. Every bit of us, body, mind, breath, spirit, all that we are goes into making our song. And unlike a soloist, the choral singer is striving to be a harmonious part of something that's much greater than anything a single individual can do. We're striving for harmony. Its root is the Greek word harmos, which means to join, connect, fit together. This is what we're reaching for when the chorus sings, to join, connect, fit together. When we achieve that harmony, it's a joyful experience. There's a sense of achievement in creating music that comes from the whole person, music that comes from working together across weeks and months, the satisfactions of reaching toward mastery, certainly never achieving it in our choir, of grappling with great works from the choral repertoire. There's good, solid data on all of this, research showing that Americans who sing in choirs are generally more optimistic, more likely to vote, less lonely, more likely to contribute to the communities they live in. Studies show that group singing fosters trust, cooperation, and social adhesion. Choral singing fosters discipline, the willingness to work at something that's both difficult and rewarding. My friend and a longtime fellow singer in the bass section, Jim Norton, once said to me, "The amateur practices until he can get it right. The professional practices until he can't get it wrong." Choral singing fosters critical thinking, self-reliance. Each of us in the choir has to find that right note and the entrance at the right moment in a difficult phrase. And choral singing teaches us about teamwork, how to be one small part of that group effort to communicate the majesty of a great work. For me, our chorus rehearsals are the shortest 2 hours in the week. For 2 hours, we set everything else aside and we sing. Sometimes in our rehearsals, in our concerts, we can enter what the scientists call the flow experience, a sense of clarity, high function, deep personal involvement, immersion in the music, our ordinary sense of time falling away as we enter the cadences of the song. Community and communication, these words have the same root. When we communicate, we take an idea from inside one head and move it into the public sphere where it can be understood by others, where we can connect and start a conversation. When we live in community, we're living in a fabric that deepens our connections with each other, building trust, encouraging us to invest in each other, helping us make healthy decisions together about how we might continue to evolve. Building community isn't just a side effect of an organization like the Island Community Chorus. It's a primary effect. Each Monday night in the library program room in Edgartown, we roll the piano out from its corner. We arrange the chairs in an arc around our director, Bill Peak, the only member of the chorus who doesn't make a sound. The singers arrive, take their chairs. We stand to stretch and sigh and breathe. We open our music folios and we begin to sing. And we know, each of us, that for these 2 hours, this is where we belong.
Thank you, Nis. We're going to stay seated for the two concluding elements of the service, before we go out to enjoy watermelon on the south lawn. And there's a little bit of a connection I'd like to point out. First, we'll sing Spirit of Life, hymn number 123, the Unitarian national anthem, which contains this wonderful phrase, roots hold me close, wings set me free. And then to conclude on the piano, Jeremy Berlin will play Blackbird. Take those broken wings and learn to fly.